Charleston, South Carolina, 3:17 p.m. A slow afternoon, but prejudice, like fog, never really lifts. She walked like someone who had nothing to prove and nothing to fear. Not rushed, not cautious. Just present, fully, unmistakably. Alana Briggs, 34, had been stateside for exactly 14 days. After 12 years in Marine Recon, she'd seen more war-torn terrain than most people could stomach in a lifetime. She'd walked through minefields in Kandahar, crossed rivers in pitch-black silence under moonless skies, and dragged wounded brothers through sand thick with gunfire. But today, she just wanted a damn coffee. Her steps echoed against the cobbled streets of Charleston, where the Spanish moss swayed lazily and the ghosts of southern gentility still whispered from behind white-columned porches. On the surface, this city oozed charm. But beneath the sweet tea and red bricks, Alana knew, there were walls that never got torn down, only repainted. She wore a simple gray hoodie and fitted black joggers. Nothing flashy. Her tall frame, sculpted from years of tactical training, moved with deliberate ease. Skin the color of polished bronze shimmered under the southern sun. Her hair, braided back in tight rows, wasn't for fashion. It was for focus. Her face, calm but unreadable, bore the kind of stillness only discipline could forge. But her eyes, cold, sharp, scanning, told a different story. She passed a row of boutique storefronts where overpriced linen shirts hung like trophies of a life untouched by struggle. She didn't belong to that world, not really. But why should that matter? She was a civilian now, free in theory, at peace in principle. Still, combat doesn't leave you. It waits in your bones. Alana had picked Liberty Point Cafe for one reason. It was quiet. The kind of place where no one looked twice, or so she thought. She was halfway there when she noticed the first sign that peace was, once again, a fragile illusion. Two police cruisers idled along the curb, hazard lights blinking silently like a heartbeat out of rhythm. No sirens, no crowd, just presence, and presence in uniform always meant something. An officer stood outside the first vehicle, posture stiff, hand resting on his belt, not because he needed to, but because he could. Her gut tightened, not in fear but in recognition. Something was off. She slowed, letting instinct take over. Her training didn't scream. It whispered. Check exits, watch his stance, note his eyes. He was watching her, deliberately. He squinted as if her face were a math problem he couldn't solve. Like he was trying to subtract her from the picture and couldn't figure out why the image still didn't feel right. And Alana knew, with cold certainty, what was about to happen. She'd seen it before, in airports, in gas stations, in neighborhoods too polished for people like her. She wasn't in uniform now. No rank on her shoulders, no medals on her chest, just a black woman walking alone in a safe neighborhood. And for some, that was all it took. She kept walking, one step. Then another. She had 12 years of elite military service, fluent in 3 languages, trained in 6 styles of combat, had defused bombs with shaking hands and a steady mind. But none of that would matter to someone who saw only skin. Not here. Not now. The officer's voice pierced the soft hum of the afternoon like a nail dragged across glass. Hey. You. Stop right there. Alana paused. She pulled out one earbud slowly. Respectfully, almost rehearsed, her eyes met his. Me? There is a language spoken in silence. The squint, the clench of a jaw, the shift of a hand, random, deliberate, toward a weapon that isn't yet needed. Alana Briggs understood that language better than most. She had spent over a decade reading people in war zones where hesitation could get you killed. But what unsettled her today wasn't the potential for violence. It was the familiarity of it. Her body had already begun assessing threats, marking exit routes, calculating angles in split seconds. Her pulse naturally settled into combat readiness, right here on a street in America. Charleston was having one of those golden spring afternoons. Light breeze, too perfect, like a painting you didn't quite trust. The air was tinged with sea salt and lavender from the florist shops lining Liberty Point, a shopping district that wore wealth like a freshly pressed blazer. Alana had just passed a chocolate boutique and was nearing a bakery when she saw them. Two police cruisers angled along the curb. Their sirens were silent, but red and blue lights flashed, like silent accusations. No yelling, no visible scuffle, just presence, and the weight it carried. The first thing she noticed was the stillness. Not peace, stillness. Like the moment before a glass slips off the edge of a table. You haven't heard the sound yet, but you know it's coming. Then came the look. From across the street, a middle-aged white cop, broad-shouldered, buzz-cut, tan uniform just a bit too stiff, locked eyes with her. His badge caught the sunlight. Officer Glenn Walters. The name engraved in black above his pocket. His eyes. Something colder. He was looking at her, not like someone who recognized a neighbor, not even like someone scanning for a suspect. Like a man spotting a stain on an otherwise clean shirt. Alana clenched her jaw, but her steps never faltered. She knew better. Don't flinch. Don't speed up. Don't give him a reason. But in America, sometimes existence itself is the reason. She passed him with a quiet dignity, earbuds in, gaze steady but not confrontational. She was almost under the cafe awning when it came. Hey! You. Stop right there. It wasn't barked. It didn't need to be. It carried the weight of centuries packed into 4 words. Alana stopped. She slowly, deliberately, removed one earbud, turning only halfway, not giving him her full body. Not yet. Me? She asked, calm as sea glass. What are you doing here? Officer Walters replied. His voice didn't rise, but it curled at the edges, like smoke looking for fire. Alana blinked once, then answered plainly, walking. Walters stepped 2 paces forward, his hand already resting on his holster, fingers slightly curled. He didn't draw his weapon, just reminded her that he could. This is a high-security area, he said, voice scratchy with condescension. Got ID? The words were simple, but the tone was not. Alana tilted her head, her mouth forming a reply, but she caught herself. She recognized the trap. This wasn't about security. It was about territory. Control. Presence. And something about her presence clearly posed a problem. High security area? She echoed. On King Street? Don't get smart with me, he snapped, stepping closer. Alana sighed, not out of fear but out of practice. She reached into her pocket, pulled out her driver's license, and held it out with the grace of someone who'd done this too many times before. Here, officer. Just passing through. No trouble here. Walters took the ID and stared at it longer than necessary, his lips tight as he read her name. Then, Alana Briggs, he muttered. What kind of name is that? Alana's eyebrow arched, just enough to say everything. The kind my parents gave me. Silence. Then a smirk. You don't look like you're from around here. There it was. Not shouted, not written, but louder than any loudspeaker. A sentence that said everything and nothing. The ID card barely moved in his hand, yet somehow it felt like a gauntlet being thrown. Officer Glenn Walters held it between two fingers as if it were something contaminated. Not stolen, not fake, just unfamiliar. And in his world, unfamiliar didn't mean curious. It meant wrong. His eyes skimmed the name again, this time out loud. Alana Briggs. He smirked. What kind of name is that? Not a question, a judgment. Alana didn't flinch. Didn't shift her stance. She stood with the weight of 12 years in the military behind her and a calm that was never mistaken for compliance. She tilted her head slightly, her voice measured, cool as stone left out overnight. You'll have to ask my parents. Then her gaze locked with his. But tell me, officer, what does someone who belongs around here look like? That was the moment, not when he spoke, but when he stopped speaking. When his pupils narrowed and his jaw set like mortar drying. It wasn't the question that made him angry. It was the audacity of her asking it. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Instead, he took a step closer, then another. And suddenly, the sidewalk between them seemed to shrink. His body was saying what his badge couldn't legally spell out. This street isn't yours. This moment isn't yours. I am the law here. Watch your tone, he said, low and taut. The phrase wasn't about volume. It was about posture, position, place. And Alana had heard it too many times from men like this. Men who wore the Constitution on their chest, but weaponized silence and suspicion more effectively than any firearm. Still, she didn't move. I'm speaking clearly. That's not a crime, yet. That last word, yet, hung in the air like a warning bell only he could hear. Glenn's face darkened. He stepped closer until the edge of his uniform brushed her hoodie. Too close. Intentionally so. Not because he needed to be, but because he needed her, and everyone watching, to feel his power. I'm calling for backup, he muttered, hand grazing the mic at his shoulder. For what? Alana asked. Her voice was steel wrapped in velvet. For someone walking, or for someone talking? His lips curled, not into a smile, but into something colder. Meaner. And then, he shoved her. It wasn't hard enough to leave a bruise. But that wasn't the point. The point was contact. Ownership. A reminder. The kind of shove that comes from a man who's never been challenged and doesn't plan to start now. Alana's body took one step back, automatically adjusting her weight. But her eyes never left his. You're disturbing the peace, Glenn declared, loud enough for bystanders to hear. That line, that classic. A catch-all accusation that said nothing and meant everything. Alana didn't reach for her phone. Didn't raise her voice. She just stood there, letting the absurdity echo louder than any scream could. She wasn't disturbing the peace. She was the peace until he decided otherwise. And that, she realized, was the most dangerous thing about Officer Glenn Walters. He believed the law ended where his assumptions began. For one suspended second, it was unclear what would happen next. Anger and humiliation surged. One card left to play. The final, deadly assertion of control. Officer Glenn Walters, panting, face flushed with fury and disgrace, still had that card to play. His hand went to his gun. It was instinct, the kind that didn't ask questions. The kind of history had seen too many times when blackness met resistance. It wasn't slow, it wasn't calculated, it was pure reflex. the kind honed not by training, but by unexamined power. But Alana saw it before he did. 3 years of war, 12 years of service. Hundreds of drills. Her body moved before her mind could, because thinking is a luxury on the edge of violence. Her hand hit his wrist in less than a second. The gun never left the holster. A second more, and his body was bent over the hood of his own cruiser. His arm was pinned. His legs were barely supporting him. His breath was now shallow, erratic, not from pain, but from being seen, from being outmaneuvered, from losing control in public. "Don't," Alana said. Not a shout, not a whisper, just final. A circle began to form. Not just bystanders, witnesses, phones raised. Red lights are blinking. Every angle captured the same image. A black woman, calm and composed. A white officer, trembling, his authority unraveling. A crowd, silent not from fear but from awe. When Alana was sure the threat was neutralized, she slowly stepped back, giving Glenn the space he never gave her. She turned, not to flee, but to face them all. She adjusted her hood, squared her shoulders, and reached into her back pocket. She pulled out a small, weathered leather badge case, its corners frayed, the emblem inside still gleaming. She held it up, not for Glenn, not for Darren, for everyone watching. The sun struck the raised gold lettering, and gasps spread across the crowd as the words came into focus. Chief Operations Specialist, U.S. Marine Recon. Retired, not just military, not just combat, elite. Decorated, feared by enemies, now doubted by neighbors. Officer Darren McCoy's eyes widened. He took a small step back, his hands dropping slightly, as if recognition had a physical weight of its own. "You're a Marine?" he asked, voice suddenly smaller. Alana nodded. 12 years, 4 deployments, 2 Bronze Stars. No criminal record, no complaints. Until today, apparently. Glenn said nothing. He couldn't. His authority, his certainty, his righteous anger, all undone by a truth too solid to deny and too visible to ignore. "You let your bias be louder than your training," Alana continued. "You looked at me and saw a problem. You never stopped to think I might be the solution." Those words hit harder than any takedown. Around them, people were still filming, some whispering, others shaking their heads. And they weren't just capturing her badge, they were capturing his face. The mix of shame and defiance is only found in men who have just realized they are not the hero of their own story. "You think you're better than me?" Glenn finally choked out, voice hoarse and broken. Alana turned to him, still calm, still steady. "No," she said, "but I know I'm better than what you just did." That moment hung in the air, heavy with truth. A shift, a reckoning, a crack in the illusion of untouchable power. Glenn stood there, holster half open, pride puddled on the pavement, while the eyes of a city, maybe a nation, looked at him not with hatred, but with clarity. Because now, the story had changed. Alana was no longer just a woman walking through the neighborhood. She was someone who had walked through fire for her country, only to be questioned on the sidewalk. And every second of that truth was recorded, witnessed, and shared. The video was 2 minutes and 47 seconds long. No music, no narration, just shaky footage recorded on an iPhone, beginning with a uniformed officer shoving a woman in a gray hoodie and ending with that same woman holding up a military badge that silenced a crowd and lit a match under the conscience of a nation. It didn't take long. Within hours, the clip flooded every major social media platform. On Twitter, it was retweeted by combat veterans, civil rights lawyers, and celebrities. On TikTok, it was stitched with commentary from young activists and retired Marines alike. On YouTube, compilations and breakdowns emerged under titles like "Decorated Veteran Harassed for Walking While Black." 12-year Marine Recon specialist puts racist cop in his place. Charleston officer draws on the wrong woman, gets educated. And the one headline that no department PR team could outrun: "What happens when you mistake a hero for a threat?" Charleston Police Department issued a brief statement within 24 hours. Officer Glenn Walters has been placed on immediate administrative leave pending a full internal investigation into the incident that occurred at Liberty Point. We take matters of conduct, bias, and use of force with the utmost seriousness. But the statement came too late and said too little. Because the internet had already conducted its own investigation, frame by frame, word by word. And it saw what it needed to. An armed officer escalating a peaceful encounter based solely on race and presence. What struck people wasn't just the shove, or the hand grazing the gun, or even the arrogance. It was how calm Alana had been. How professional, how restrained, how many times she gave him a chance to de-escalate, and how many times he chose not to. She didn't seek out the spotlight, but when the spotlight found her, she didn't flinch. On a Thursday evening, Alana sat across from a national news anchor, the American flag behind her ironically less impressive than the bronze star that glinted on her lapel. Her voice was firm, unshaking. "I've kicked down doors in foreign countries to keep people safe," she said. "But the hardest part of serving this country is coming home and still being treated like the enemy." She didn't call for Officer Walters to be fired. She didn't demand vengeance. She asked a question. If I, with 12 years of service, a clean record, medals, and training, can be treated like a threat just for walking, what happens to the ones without a badge to flash? The ones who can't prove their worth in uniform? The question lingered long after the segment ended. Letters flooded the local paper. Veterans wrote in support. Church groups held conversations. Charleston City Council announced a new committee to review racial bias in street-level policing. At Liberty Point, the cafe Alana never got to enter placed a photo of her in the window. Below it, a handwritten sign, "You always belonged here." And yet, the most striking part wasn't the fallout. It was how ordinary it all felt. Because for millions watching, Alana's story wasn't shocking. It was familiar. She had simply become the face of a truth long whispered in barbershops, behind steering wheels, and across dinner tables. That respect in America is still conditional. And some uniforms can't protect you from others. The Charleston Police Department remains under investigation. Officer Glenn Walters has not returned to duty. Alana Briggs. She keeps walking. Only now, the world's watching her pace. Not to stop her, but to keep up. The studio lights were bright, but they didn't faze her. Alana Briggs sat tall in the interview chair, hands folded, eyes steady. No uniform, no medals. Just a simple black blouse, sleeves rolled, the faint trace of a watch tan still etched on her wrist like a quiet reminder. Service doesn't fade when you hang up the badge. Across from her, the news anchor leaned in, voice low, as if trying not to disturb the weight of the moment. "After everything that's happened, what would you say to Officer Walters if he were sitting here?" Alana didn't blink. She didn't sigh. She didn't seethe. She just looked directly into the lens, and with a voice calm enough to command a battlefield, she answered, "I'd tell him this. I wore the uniform for 12 years. Led teams, saved lives, buried friends. But out here, without it, I'm still seen as a threat." The studio went quiet. Not because the words were loud, but because they were uncomfortable and undeniably true. She could have taken the path of vengeance, filed lawsuits, pressed charges, raised hell. But Alana knew something deeper. Power without grace is just another form of violence. So she chose something stronger. She chose to speak, not for herself, but for the thousands whose stories never make it past the sidewalk, for the ones whose dignity is questioned before their names are even learned, for the ones who never had a camera to prove they were telling the truth. "This isn't about one officer," she said. "It's about a culture that teaches us who to fear and who we're allowed to doubt without consequence." She wasn't emotional. She was precise. Every sentence was like a chisel tapping at the marble of indifference. No yelling, no dramatics. Just a woman who had earned her peace and was finally claiming it. 3 days after the interview aired, the city of Charleston announced a review of community policing standards. Officer Glenn Walters remained on unpaid suspension. But for Alana, the real victory came in the moments after the cameras shut off. No crowds, no microphones. Just space to breathe. She walked alone through Marion Square Park that Sunday. No reporters, no phone in hand. Just the wind threading through trees and sunlight pooling on the path ahead. Children ran across the lawn, chasing kites. A jazz trio played near the fountain. A couple shared a bench, their laughter easy and unbothered. No one stared. No one followed. And maybe most important of all, no one moved to question whether she belonged. Alana exhaled. Not relief. Release. The kind that doesn't come from winning, but from refusing to disappear. She paused near the rose bushes, letting the breeze run past her face like a blessing, then kept walking, tall, centered, unafraid. She had faced down warlords, insurgents, and mortars, but perhaps her fiercest battle had been this, proving she didn't have to prove anything to be treated like a human being. The story didn't end in outrage. It ended in stillness. In one black woman walking through a park, no longer mistaken for danger. No longer reduced to a threat, no longer shadowed by suspicion, just sunlight. And the justice she reclaimed, not through retaliation, but through restraint. Because sometimes the most radical thing a person can do is to keep walking like they have always belonged. What happened to Alana Briggs isn't just a story about one officer, one veteran, or one city. It's a mirror, and it reflects something we all need to confront, that even heroes aren't immune to prejudice, that even silence can become complicity, and that justice isn't just the absence of violence, it's the presence of respect. Alana didn't scream, she didn't retaliate, she stood firm. She told the truth. She reminded us that calm doesn't mean weak, and dignity doesn't need permission. But now, the baton is in our hands. Because this isn't just about what happened on Liberty Point, it's about what happens in neighborhoods across the country, every single day, where someone is stopped, questioned, or silently judged, just for existing. So ask yourself, do you see what's happening? Do you speak up when it does? Do you stand for those whose voices are drowned by doubt? Don't just scroll. Don't just nod. Share this story. Let it echo beyond the headlines, into schools, offices, city councils, dinner tables, and most of all, into action. Because, as Alana proved, change doesn't always come with sirens. Sometimes, it walks quietly, with its head held high. Like, share, subscribe. Not for clicks, for conscience. This is more than content. It's a call,